My name is John Stoltz, Director of Conferences and Events for APICS, and I will be your host for today's webinar. We are pleased to be joined by Alan Milliken with BASF for today's program, Leveraging Analytics in the S&OP Process at BASF. Alan is a featured presenter for the APICS 2016 conference, scheduled for September 25th through 27th in Washington, D.C., and we're pleased to have him joining us today with a preview of the great content that will be featured at the conference. You can learn more about the APICS 2016 conference, including educational session descriptions, special savings for early registration, and more at apicsconference.org. Alan is assigned to the Supply Chain Capability Development Team at BASF, the world's leading chemical company, and has 40 years of experience in supply chain and operations management. BASF is among those firms who recognize the critical role of S&OP in achieving desired business results. For several years, the firm has been addressing improvement of supply chain planning processes from a people, process, and technology perspective. As part of this overall effort, BASF has developed an integrated sales and operations process, IS&OP, which includes the use of analytics. Alan joins us today to explore the role of analytics in the integrated S&OP process, including alignment of the S&OP scorecard with the business goals and objectives, examples of predictive and descriptive analytics relevant in S&OP, and steps to ensure that the analytics lead to better decision making. Participation in today's webinar qualifies as one elective hour towards the APICS S&OP Educational Certificate. Please visit apics.org/SOP to learn more about the certificate program. Before we begin, I'd like to run through a few logistical details with you. At the end of the presentation, we will save time for a question and answer session. If you look at the right toolbar on your screen, you'll see a question box. To ask your question, simply type it in the designated box and select Send Question to Staff to send at any time during the presentation. For those of you viewing this program in a room with several participants, you may want to designate one person to type in the questions from your group. Should you experience any technical difficulties during today's broadcast, please call GoToWebinar Tech Support at 1-805-617-7000. This presentation is being recorded and will be posted online at apics.org. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our speaker for today's broadcast, Alan Milliken.
Good day, everyone. This is Alan. We're here to talk about leveraging analytics in S&OP. So I won't spend a lot of time on my background, but I've been in the industry about 40 years, 22 years at major sites, manufacturing sites, 14 as a supply chain consultant, and 8 now as a supply chain educator. So you could say supply chain is my life. I work for BASF, and people often ask me, Alan, what does BASF stand for? BASF stands for Bottiche Aniline Soda Fabrique. We started with a soda ash factory in 1865. The original name of the company is Bottiche. I hired into Bottiche, as a matter of fact, and 3 years after I hired in, we rebranded to BASF. Here on the slide, you can see kind of our history starting in 1865 and some of the key milestones in our history. We create chemistry for a sustainable future. We're very much focused on sustainability and corporate social responsibility at BASF, a really primary pillar in our case. BASF today, we have 5 major segments. We've been around 150 years. Our revenue in 2014 was about 74 billion euros. We, of course, are expanding in the emerging nations. I think they've emerged now, but we still use that term some. But we're very active in Brazil, China, India, and so forth. We have about 113,000 employees, and of course, we're not U.S.-centric. We have 100 large manufacturing facilities and a multitude of small ones. By the way, in the previous picture, these photos, most I think were taken at our Ludwigshafen site in Germany, and it's one of the largest manufacturing sites in the world. we have a total of 42,000 employees in Ludwigshafen and about 100 manufacturing sites, plants, excuse me. So the role of analytics in sales and operations planning. The first thing I want to talk about just a minute is what we call the Freeport Creed. Freeport is our second largest site in North America. In the mid-90s, we were implementing S&OP in a business who owns that site. That site produces for this business. And in the first 2 or 3 S&OP meetings during the implementation phase, we discovered that we didn't have enough information to make good decisions. We were making too many decisions based on subjective judgment and qualitative input, decisions on demand plans, decisions on our capabilities in manufacturing, decisions regarding what we should and should not do to match demand and supply. So out of that process came what we now call the Freeport Creed. The creed is, in God we trust, everyone else bring data. So this became a motto at BASF for S&OP implementations. In God we trust, everyone else bring data. Because we want more fact-based decision makings in the S&OP process. And of course, some key facts that we're going to use in S&OP do come from analytics, from turning big data into useful information. So what is or are analytics? We talk about it a lot today, don't we? The discipline of using math, statistics, and models to extract knowledge from data. The ability to do this and do this well is becoming more and more of a differentiator in the world today. Those companies that can turn their big data into decision-making analytics and can use them to identify problems and bring focus to the right areas from a corrective action standpoint are going to beat their competition. There's no doubt about it. So we know we're in the information age, and we know we compete on information, and this is another good example of what we mean by that. What is sales and operations planning? Of course, sales and operations planning has been around since the late 80s. Richard Ling was the first to write about sales and operations planning when he was with Ollie White, and Dick still consults and talks about S&OP today. S&OP was created because we really did not have a bridge between our annual business planning and our weekly operations planning. So we had nothing in between. So in many cases, we really had no connection between what we talked about once a year and the goals we set once a year and what was happening on the shop floor in our plants or in the distribution network and so forth. So S&OP provides us that bridge between the two. It's usually done at the product family or product group level, where business planning is usually done at even a more aggregate level, a strategic business unit level or an industry level within that business, for example. Master scheduling, of course, is the disaggregate of S&OP and is done at the product level. Now, we know that the link between S&OP and master scheduling needs to be a tight link, and the aggregate of the master schedule needs to match up well with our S&OP plan. Why is this? Because our S&OP plan represents our financial projections, represents what the leadership team has committed to, and therefore what the entire organization has really committed to. And if we don't maintain a strong relationship between S&OP and MPS, for example, we're going to lose control of the business and we're going to be surprised with the results. So we use S&OP to bring together plans. Of course, this includes financial plans, and integration of financial plans is a key objective of S&OP. At BASF, we have renamed the process IS&OP, Integrated S&OP. Of course, Ollie White calls it Integrated Business Processes, or we used to say Integrated Business Management. We didn't drop the S&OP term. We've had S&OP since the early 90s in many of our units, but we did add that word integrated. We do agree with Ollie White and others that you have to make it clear that this is an integrated business process. It's not a supply chain scheduling process. To make it clear that it's an integrated business process, you must integrate your financial planning. By the way, I implemented S&OP 7 times as a consultant, and 5 of the 7, I had the CFO as my project champion, and those went very well. Because when the CFO sees how much this process improves your financial projections, sees how well this process identifies upcoming problems, they really like it, and they will really be a good supporter of the process. Key activities in S&OP, of course, we have the plan demand, review demand, plan supply, review supply, bring the two together, have an executive validation and approval of the plan. On the perimeter of this, we have some key enablers, and analytics will be included in this group of key enablers. You know, as time has gone on, we all recognize that many S&OP processes are not performing to expectations because we overlook the importance of the enablers. We do not have enough in place in this area. So key enablers, strategic decision making needs to be integrated with the process. KPIs and performance measurements. We're going to look at some examples for S&OP. Choosing the correct ones and using those to drive success is very key here. Financial integration, critical to ensure business success. If you want S&OP recognized as a business process, you must get the financials integrated. If you only do S&OP in quantity, and you only look at things like demand-supply balance in quantity, you will never succeed in making it a true business process. So that's a very critical step in the evolution. I would say you should be looking to start integrating financials within 3 to 4 months of initial implementation or kickoff. So you kick it off, you have 3 to 4 months to get other things in place, get your foundation in place, and then you should be looking to start integrating your financial plan. Here's a sample S&OP planning grid. This one is dealing with demand, supply, and inventory. This one is not the financial view. We do have a separate one for the financial view at BASF. But they're very similar, except one is in units and one's in value. And of course, the one in value looks at things like budget versus where we are today. So here we have our demand information, our supply information, and our inventory information. Of course, for the previous 3 months, we want to show our history in the S&OP plan. Previous 3 months history. This is critical because if you have a bad trend taking place, production is below plan every month, the forecast is above sales significantly every month. If you have trends going on, this is going to help you to detect those. And you know what we say in supply chain management, the definition of stupidity is doing everything the same each month and expecting to get better. Well, this truly applies in S&OP. If you're over forecasting 30 to 40% every month, at some point you have to decide to discuss that and maybe take some action. So you're actually using this historical information to detect trends, detect problems, and help focus on those. Types of analytics we're going to use in S&OP. I break them down into descriptive, predictive, and optimizing. We use all three at BASF, and I'll show you some examples. Descriptive analytics, used to measure performance, report what has happened, why it happened, and plan for improvement. Now, there's different levels of descriptive analytics. Some are designed just to report performance. You know, our on-time deliveries at 92%, and that's not good enough. Some descriptive analytics are designed to fix the problem, to find and correct the problem. So you get into much more detail. On-time delivery by product and customer shipped to, just to pick an example. This is where you're going to have enough information to actually go take some corrective action. Both are important, reporting your performance and taking action. Predictive analytics, the analysis of current or historical data to make predictions about the future. Of course, forecasting is the most common, but there are others, and we'll look at an example here. Optimizing analytics, the more powerful analytics, the use of data, constraints, and business rules to maximize on a given objective. All of us are doing more and more in this area, especially in the S&OP process. Sample S&OP predictive analytics. So, I call this an innovative analytic for S&OP. You know, we can say innovation anytime that maybe we're a little bit ahead of somebody else, or we're in the top 10% as far as using a new process or analytic goes. Here we're going to use volume variance analysis in the S&OP process. We're looking to determine what's forecastable, what's not forecastable, when to apply statistics, when that's just not possible, how much of our product mix falls in a given category. We'll look at a summary in a minute, but first I just wanted to explain the process a little bit. So at BASF, we call it ABC XYZ. ABC based on volume, XYZ based on variance. For our variance, we use the coefficient of variance ratio, which is very, very common, and I'm sure that most of you use it also. Standard deviation in demand divided by the average period demand. So if we look at the lime green box here, we have high volume and low variance. This is kind of the promised land. This is where we're trying to get to, because in this area, our statistical tools are going to function very well. We're going to be able to forecast those products very, very well. If we look at the orange, we have high volume, but our variance is also high. In this case, we have to collaborate with our customers, and we have to identify who our A customers are, and we have to be more proactive in getting input from our customer base. The dark green in the B column, we have average volume, and in this case, we're proactive with selective customers using the 80-20 rule. In the C column, that's our low volume products. If we have low variance, we will still forecast, but we will not ask sales and marketing to spend their time on C items with low variance. We will take the forecast number. We will not ask them to look at all these C items. Keep in mind, this group could easily represent 40% or more of your products. So in this case, we will not tie up our sales and marketing people to look at all of these. They need to focus on the A and B items. The C-Z items, the low volume, very high variance, not possible to forecast. We're going to have to take a look at the profitability, and we're going to have to come up with some stocking policies. So we summarize these results by product group. In this case, it's an S&OP product family. and we look at what the summary tells us about this business. Here, 29 of the 46 products can be forecasted. Over 90% of the volume can be forecasted. So this is good. Now for the bad news. 37% of the products represent 6% of the revenue. Very common scenario within my firm, and I guarantee you we're not alone here because we are the world's largest chemical company, so you can bet that other people have the same issue. Now, for these 37% that generate 6% of the revenue, we want to check profitability. We want to look at placing them on make to order. We're probably going to need some price increases. We're going to have to deal with this problem. Advanced analytics can improve your aggregate demand predictions also. So here's a case of using an advanced predictive analytic. In this case, we're using leading indicators. I listed several of those for you here. And we're using exponential smoothing and multiple regression analysis to forecast ups and downs in the product group demand. We've had great success with these tools thus far. These tools belong to our demand analytics group, a group of 5 or 6 guys that all have PhDs in statistics and math and all really know what they're doing with this advanced tool. The average demand planner is not expected to be able to manage this level of analytics. So, analytics are key inputs to your capital spending decisions. Here's a case where one of our business units for one of their major product groups appears to need more capacity. The forecast, the future forecast, is way above our current capacity, both our rated capacity and our demonstrated capacity. So in this case, we're going to have to make a decision on how do we acquire additional capacity if we want that market, and when we make our move and to what extent. Now, in the chemical industry, you don't add capacity a little bit at a time. You either spend the 300 to 500 million euros or you don't add capacity. So you can see this is going to be a critical S&OP decision here. One of the things we will look at is how good has our forecasting been in the past, because notice how much this forecast is increasing. 300, 400, 500. We will definitely want to look at how accurate this group's forecasting has been in the past. Sample S&OP Descriptive Analytics. Here's an example of S&OP level demand supply inventory where we're comparing production plan to actual, and you can see that our actual production is tracking pretty well with the plan. They did get over plan in the middle of the year there. We're tracking our forecast represented by the bar with our actual sales represented by the line. And we had an over forecasting issue, but you notice we've dealt with that, and it has gotten better. One of the reasons we measure these things is to improve our process. So you would hope that when you see 3 or 4 months of over forecasting back to back, that you would also see adjustments taking place. So sales are tracking below forecast for the first 7 months of the year, but performance to plan and sales to forecast has been pretty good for the last 5 months. So this is reviewed in the S&OP meeting every month, and we certainly expect action. Notice we're also showing nameplate capacity just to make the point that this product group is selling way below our manufacturing capacity. We use dashboards or cockpits, depending on your favorite term, for S&OP. We're working very hard to improve our tool set in this area, and we're getting better all the time. And the business units get pretty innovative in how they show this, for actual discussion. So in this case, it's a demand planning dashboard. So we have our forecast accuracy, and we have our bias, two of our major KPIs for demand planning. Notice our issues and decisions. This is manual input. Customer demand in France decreased about 7%. This we have to manually input at this time. It's not all automated, but it's important to have these important issues and decisions documented. You want all key decisions documented. We have our KPIs like sales versus plan, inventory versus goal, and then at the bottom we include the actual plan. Total sales orders, constrained forecast, budgeted quantity, and so forth. So it's a lot to get in one picture, but keep in mind people have time to study this. These things go out as a pre-read for the S&OP executive meeting for sure. Anything we want the functional managers and leadership team to see and discuss will go out ahead of the meeting. Sample sales versus inventory by S&OP group. This business has an S&OP process owner, and that's a full-time job. I wish we had that in every business, but in our smaller businesses, I don't think it's going to happen. But this business has a full-time S&OP process owner, and they do a really good job of getting ready for the meeting. So here you can see that the business has 3 plants. They're showing the sales history and the inventory history for each plant, and then they're showing some key notes. Sales trend is seasonal. Inventory peaks during the off-season. Sales semi-steady until August. October unexpectedly overconsumed forecast. So what happened when we overconsumed forecast unexpectedly? We had to change the production plan on short notice, and that kind of stuff happens, doesn't it? So we're pointing these things out, and we're discussing these things. For Plant T, we have high inventories and low sales, and we are concerned about our inventory here. Our inventory is about 4 times monthly demand, so we definitely need to take some action here. Use of predictive and descriptive S&OP analytics together. So here, the descriptive analytic is the difference in sales and forecast. Forecast error is our descriptive analytic. Notice for the past 3 months, our forecast has been 100 every month. Our actual sales are between 85 and 95, and we have a cumulative difference of 30. So we're over forecasting every month. Now I've seen worse numbers than this at my company, but still it's enough over forecasting to create some problems for us in the inventory area. Our production to plan is pretty good. We have no serious issues there, but obviously with over forecasting and overproducing, our inventory is going to be above plan. So the prediction is revised based on the descriptive analytics. So the descriptive analytic points out, hey, you guys are over forecasting every month. We've got an inventory issue. We're going to have to take some action. And then we revise the prediction, as you can see. So it's an example of using a descriptive analytic to change your prediction. A sample S&OP dysfunctional inventory report. I was had second thoughts about showing you just how bad we are in this business with our product group dysfunctional inventory, but I decided, hey, it's okay to show the truth in this case. We have aged inventory, blocked meaning it cannot be distributed and can be a variety of reasons, quality and other, and then we have our total dysfunctional inventory. Each business, by the way, based on their profile, decides what's aged inventory, what's dead stock. Each business decides this based on their profile. So the percent of aged is shown on the right-hand side, and the percent of the total that's blocked. Notice it's coded red if we're above target and tolerance, which is coded red. It's coded green if we're below target. So in this case, we have a lot of work to do. One of our product groups, we have 14% of the inventory is aged. And so you can see we have some work to do here. So again, a descriptive analytic that we're using in S&OP. Now these numbers are at the product group level. Obviously, we will use the SKU level report to look into corrective action, but we're reporting it for S&OP purposes. Sample S&OP optimizing analytics. So in our industry, it's quite often that you have an objective that you're trying to optimize around. In this case, our objective is to maximize production and minimize production changes within inventory constraints. Now you say, Alan, maximize production? Man, APICS would die. You know, why? Who maximizes production? When you spend 600 million euros on a bulk chemical plant, you will work hard to maximize production. Everybody in the business will. Otherwise, the depreciation might put you out of business. So in this case, we really are looking to keep the production level up. We have a minimum inventory of 50 units based on maintaining customer service. We have a maximum of 100. The maximum is usually set either based on storage capacity limitation or the vice president's goal. We certainly do not want to exceed the vice president's goal on the inventory side. Our maximum production rate's 120 and our current production rate's 120. So you know what optimization and simulation means. We're trying to keep the production at the maximum. We want to be at 120 just as often as we can. Notice in this case, we did not have to lower the production until period 6 to stay within the inventory parameters. However, we've got a significant risk here. We're planning to go to maximum inventory for months 4, 5, and 6. So we're taking on pretty good risks there by planning to go to maximum inventory. Advanced optimizing analytics. These are also becoming more and more popular. In this case, our objective is to maximize EBIT, maximize profits while balancing demand and supply within capacity constraints and inventory limits. So you can see why we call it advanced. We have to consider a lot of constraints. We have a lot of inputs coming into play here. Value parameters from controlling in the business warehouse, demand forecasts, capacities, inventory limits, bombs and routings from production. We're going to determine here how much of each product will be allocated to each plant. And we're going to come up with that S&OP plan for each plant based on optimizing around our objective to maximize profit margin. That's what this tool does, is it gives us a plan to maximize profitability. Notice it gives us a sales target for every region, a production plan. It gives us the external purchasing plan, optimizes to make sure we have the raw material that we need, and so forth. So this is a pretty high-powered tool here. This is definitely a pretty high-powered tool. We use this tool in 2 businesses currently. More businesses are looking at it, though, because the 2 that use it really like it. So sample data and process structure around optimizing. Sales order requests must be within plan. These are rules. You have to have business rules. Sales orders must be provided 4 weeks before expected shipment. Unplanned sales orders are reviewed by marketing and operations. They have to come together. Data and process information, customer segmentation analysis and results are used. Total delivered cost from each plant to each customer shipped to is part of the scenario. So we have identified that total delivered cost from each plant, there's 3 plants involved, to every ship to. Online real-time check of requests versus optimized plan. So the customer calls up and says, I'm ready for you to ship me my product. We check to see if it's in the plan or not. That's necessary for us to optimize to this extent. Exception report monitoring of plan versus actual sales. Aligning the S&OP scorecard with your business needs. At BASF, we believe in and we have value-based management. Value-based management means that every function has to understand how they contribute to EBIT after cost of capital. A funny thing about EBIT after cost of capital, it's called EVA, economic value added, on the stock exchange and by most business people, but that term was invented by DuPont, so we do not use that term at BASF. We say EBIT after cost of capital. Now, on the right-hand side, you will see the value drivers and the associated KPIs. And you can see in the map whether the value driver increases revenue, reduces fixed cost, reduces variable cost, or reduces cost of capital. It's a pretty simplistic way to educate the supply chain function on how they contribute. So if we give good on-time delivery and we have no customer complaints, we increase revenue. If we can consolidate shipments and we, reduce transportation costs, that helps us on the variable cost side. Forecasting, by the way, helps us improve service, reduce cost, and reduce inventory. We happen to show it on the asset side, but it really helps with all 3. So here you can see that we have a map for how supply chain is going to add value, and obviously this map has to be implemented through your S&OP process. You'll measure things like on-time delivery to request date, forecasting accuracy, inventory days to target. You'll measure these things. So, aligning your descriptive KPIs with your business goals and objectives. Your vision, earn a premium on cost of capital, help our customers improve, ensure sustainability. That's at a corporate level. The business model, you're producing commodity products in this case, transparent pricing, difficult to differentiate. So what are your competitive priorities? Low price, reliable delivery, and consistent quality. Why reliable delivery is so important? These are commodity intermediates in this case, and we are B2B, and we shut down our customers if these products don't show on time. So it's very, very critical in our case. KPIs, supply chain cost, on-time delivery, first pass prime yield. So it's very important in your S&OP process that your scorecard metrics align with your business model and your competitive priorities, and of course those are bound by your corporate vision. So all of these things have to align. You also have to align your metrics across the business, strategic, tactical, and operational. Here we see EBIT after cost of capital, our #1 financial strategic measure. We have tactical measures. Here's your S&OP level, setting in the middle here, tactical, S&OP, inventory days, forecast accuracy, on-time delivery, supply chain cost. And of course we have to have aligned operational metrics so we can correct things. You won't correct things by looking at the total inventory days. It's like taking your blood pressure. It's nice to know, but you're not going to fix anything. So you go to your operational level to detect and fix your issues, daily yield performance, cycle count accuracy, actual versus scheduled production. Here's a sample S&OP scorecard. We use the different perspectives from the balanced scorecard and from the score model. Both of those are key inputs to us at BASF. The score model from the APICS Supply Chain Council and the balanced scorecard from Kaplan and Norton. So we have the customer perspective, the internal perspective, the financial perspective, and the innovative perspective. Key point is that you have to have targets and tolerances. You cannot just have absolute targets because you're going to be wrong every month if you only have absolute targets. You're going to have to allow yourself some tolerance, okay? The look of the scorecards varies greatly from one business to another. We recommend 10 to 15 metrics at the S&OP level. You get too many metrics and you're not going to be able to focus and take corrective actions. Notice we do include innovative, training hours per employee, positive career moves, and so forth. Very important, innovative. So, in summary, you want to gather and store the data. More is better at the beginning point, so get lots of data. You want to develop a target for what information is needed to improve performance. And here you have to involve all the stakeholders. What does a marketing manager need to make better decisions and to detect problems in the demand area? What does an operations manager need? And so forth. Make sure you cover all the key functions. You implement a data structure to provide these analytics. Sales by product and customer group, for example, a multi-dimensional data structure. You transform the data to information. You do want to provide standard analytics and standard KPIs as well as custom query capability. So you want both. But many KPIs and many analytical reports can be standard. For example, aged inventory, everybody can look at. Dead stock, everybody can look at. You know, forecast error. So you want to do that as much as possible to help. Transform the information into knowledge so you can identify trends, patterns, and exceptions. Generate KPIs and dashboards for your S&OP process so you know what's most important and what to focus on in the short term. And then take action to improve S&OP. So, for your path forward, in 2012, SAS and MIT surveyed 2,500 supply chain people from 20 industries. 67% said they're going to be using analytics to improve their performance. I don't know where your firm stands in regard to the effective use of analytics, but to learn more about us, you can join us at APICS International in Washington in September. And there'll be many speakers help you down this path and help you improve your use of analytics in the S&OP process. So I'll turn it back over to the moderator now.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Excellent content. Now we'd like to give you, the audience, the chance to ask any additional questions. As a reminder, please click on the Q&A tab on the side of your screen, enter your question, and click Ask. We'll now give you a few moments to send in your questions. Great. So we'll start with the first question here. Alan, is it necessary to use only product families, or can we use SKU-based discussions?
An excellent question, because the truth is in the S&OP meeting that if you have a SKU that is significant in that product group, you will end up discussing that SKU even at the leadership level, because if it's significant, let's say it's 40% of your product group demand and you have a problem, that can lead to serious issues with your overall S&OP product group plan. So yes, it is common that SKUs do have to come into discussion. It's best if you can take care of that issue in the pre-S&OP process, which is the functional manager level, marketing manager, production manager, supply. So if you have a serious SKU issue, if you can resolve it there, that's better. But there will be some that come to the leadership meeting. I definitely agree with that.
Great, thank you. Next up, does the operations director act as the integrator, or does finance play a role as the integrator? And following up to that, who balances between sales and operations?
Well, between sales and operations, the business leader is probably the only one that can drive that balance if you think about the normal organizational reporting structure. However, the chief financial officer or the controller is very powerful in this area also, particularly when you're in a bad economy and you're not performing well to budget. The CFO will definitely push ops and marketing in the desired direction from a financial perspective. The controller has to be the key to integrating financial consideration into the plan. Operations will not care about that much at all, to be honest with you. Might even be against it a little bit. So the controller will have to be the one to drive the financial integration.
Great, thank you. Next up, our S&OP doesn't involve the top management. It's just a planner and middle management process. Is there any way we can achieve success in it?
It's going to be difficult because that lack of senior leadership involvement and commitment, which is the #1 reason for ineffective S&OPs given on every survey. We've been surveying for 20 years, and every time I see a survey, that's given as #1, lack of senior management participation and commitment. It's very hard to take it beyond a scheduling inventory discussion, demand supply inventory discussion, if you can't get senior leadership to the table and get them to use the S&OP executive meeting instead of their business meeting. The ultimate goal is they wouldn't even have a monthly business meeting be integrated into S&OP. So yes, it'll be very difficult to go beyond demand supply balancing and so forth without them. Now let me say this, if you've got all of the key functional managers participating and they are agreeing on at least the quantitative, the KGs or whatever plan and what you're going to do each month, and they're driving the business in a better direction, that's still a nice to have. That's not the goal, but it is a nice to have.
Great, thank you. Next up, does S&OP make sense for a business that is 100% make to order?
Well, I think it makes sense, but I think the question really should be how different is it? Because we have some make-to-order businesses, and I find that it's just so different from what the textbooks teach, you know, when you get into a make-to-order business, because the only thing we're forward planning for the most part are resources and raw materials. So, you know, we're forward planning things like, do we think we have enough labor hours, machine hours, forward planning raw materials based on past consumption, these sort of things. So yes, I think it can help you, but I think you'll have to work hard to configure it to your business, and it will be much different than what you're going to read in the textbooks.
Great, thank you. Next up, this is great for a mature company. What about startup companies who are implementing at the baseline?
Well, if you're a startup company, I understand the point that we sell this as you're a mature company with basically mature product line and you're just learning to plan better. But if you're a startup company, you need better planning at the tactical level just as much as the rest of us. So yes, I would say that you should consider it in a startup company. Now, where you put it in the priorities, of course, is important because, you know, early in startup, think about everything you're trying to decide and you're trying to do, are you ready to define the framework for S&OP? And the answer is probably no, at least the first 6 months, you know. So I think, yes, it can help a startup company, but yes, you will probably want to postpone the S&OP implementation a little while. But I would understand the vision for S&OP early on, so as you go through all these decisions, organizational decisions, you know, what are we going to measure, how are we going to do things, you already have that vision in mind. I think I would do that much.
And then speaking of measurement, another follow-up question here, what would be the master KPI to measure the success of the S&OP process?
Well, the master KPI at BASF would be EBIT after cost of capital in the business unit. And I think that would hold true for many companies, or economic value added if you prefer, because if we do not succeed financially, we haven't succeeded at the end of the day. I've worked in businesses where the S&OP process seemed to be really great. We seem to have a really good process, you know, with all the right things taking place, cross-functional communications, collaboration, cooperation, using all the tool sets, you know, but we still weren't improving the bottom line, or we may even be slipping on the bottom line. So that's the master measure is, you know, is it moving you forward financially or not?
Got it. All right, so here's someone who said that site leadership has failed in previous attempts at S&OP, along with corporate hesitance to support it. Now they've got new site leadership, and the question is, how can we get the ball rolling again with S&OP?
Well, at some point, you've got to have a brief, say 90-minute to 2-hour S&OP executive session for leadership. If you look at the Tom Wallace How-To Handbook, just to pick an example, he talks about this up front quite a bit, you know, because you cannot assume that leadership understands what it is or what it's going to do for you. So you're going to need at least 90 minutes to 2 hours of their time with an experienced person to come in and explain to them what the process is and how it can help and so forth. Now, again, you want to work on that controlling function, because if you don't have a real good scenario going on as far as financial integration with operations planning, I'll just pick an example, and they understand that this tool provides them that link to understand exactly what is the gap between financial commitments and where we are and where we plan to be, they get really excited about this process then. And usually finance has quite a bit of influence, at least in my businesses, once they get on board with something. But an early step is you do have to have someone that is a bit of an expert on S&OP, educate your leadership.
Great, thank you. And just time for one last question, Alan, here. What is the best method for planning new product introduction where history is not available?
Oh, would you say that again? I missed part of it.
I'm sorry. What is the best method for planning new product introductions where history is not available?
Well, first of all, let's say there's no good way, you know. Historical analogy using similar products is our most popular approach. Historical analogy using similar products or products sold to a similar market segment, you know. Then you end up with the not so great qualitative approaches. Ask a group of customers. Get a panel together of people familiar with the market and the product and get opinions. You know, then you get into the purely qualitative, and we all know what kind of results we usually get with qualitative. Do you know that Apple missed their forecast on the first iPod so bad that they were in back order in 6 weeks, and they lost about $100 million before they could ramp up some production. Now, when you make the billions they do now, you'd laugh about that. But my point is, they had the same issue. They're trying to figure out, who wants this iPod thing. So there's no good answer. If you cannot use historical analogy, if you're going to have to go totally qualitative, then you want to look to experts in the product field and the market segment, and even customers if you have that opportunity.
Great. Thank you, Alan. Again, on behalf of APICS, we'd like to thank our speaker, Alan Milliken, for his time and great insights. Alan, and again, to all the attendees, thank you so much for joining us. And we are hopeful that you can attend APICS 2016 in Washington, D.C. For Alan's educational session on resolving conflict and building consensus in the S&OP process. Again, please visit apicsconference.org for more information, including opportunities for special savings. All content and material included in this APICS online event are the property of APICS and are protected by the United States and international copyright laws. All rights are reserved. This concludes today's APICS online event. Thank you for participating.
Thank you for participating, guys, and I hope to see you at APICS International.